Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's UBNradio.com.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, love, laugh, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Fay on UBNradio.com.
And welcome. You are tuned into my weekly talk show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon on UBN and every Thursday on my syndicated channel KCAA CNBC News Radio AM 1050. And thanks to the station owner Fred and station manager Mark, they love my show so much they just told me last week they are putting me on Saturdays at noon. So more times and more ways to listen to a show about hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal, no K words, no Kardashian talk, and no CNN, no constantly negative news. So we can talk about what is right with you and with the world and not what's wrong with it, except for today.
Except for today.
I am delighted to have back with us one of your favorite guests by popular demand, and that is, if you haven't recognized the voice yet, dun 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 dun. So that was from
perfect.
Gilligans.
You can do that many times. Go ahead.
The real MaryAnn from Gilligans Island, Dawn Wells, actress, author, beautiful youthing example of the vibrance of life, the delightful Dawn Wells.
My goodness, thank you.
And my friend, my new friend.
I know, isn't it fun?
It is very fun. I got to go see a play that you were in a couple of months ago. It was fabulous.
Talk about what women wear and what it means to us. And boy, do you look dynamite today, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it takes beauty to see beauty. So back at you. I learned that in Morocco. And so today, actually, it was funny. I was talking to my assistant producer last week on the way to the car. I have a lot of people ask me, why don't you talk about what's on the news? It's breaking news, and most of the time, breaking news is the worst in people who got raped, murder, race crimes, crime, kidnapping, alleged, all the worst, and then people who don't, their claim to fame is the bad things that they've done. And so I don't like talking about that, but I do have a lot of listeners who have growingly asked me to talk about these things that come up because they want to know what a different way to look at it than what they hear from the normal commentators or the average commentators who tend to, really want to dramatize the, what the drugs were, how could they do that? And, basically at the end of the show, you're saying, what's wrong with this world is going to heck in the handbasket. So I thought, when I got a note from Dawn's manager, Leonard, to say, she's been doing so many shows, it would be great if she could actually try out hosting, because she's been asked to host her own show. I've been encouraging her as well. So today, and today only, first time exclusive on the Retired Professor and MaryAnn, because I did teach grad school for 10 years.
There we are.
Yes, I am on the hot seat today, and you are the host. So welcome to
my show. I've never done this before. I like to talk a lot, so we'll get along really well.
I know.
I'm going to make you break some of your die hard. I'm not going to do this anymore because there's so much going on in the news right now. I'm a news junkie. I really am. I listen to it almost 24 hours a day. I have it going in my house. I don't read the newspaper very much, but I do have it in the background. And there's so much happening right now.
Yes.
And it isn't all good. But right now I'm going to put you on the hot spot a little bit about what do you think about this election that's going to happen? And what do you think about Mr. Trump?
Let's see. Well, let me put the moose on the table as far as where I hear people around politics. So in the old days, democracy, great, right? You have the opportunity to vote, make a difference, elect someone, the people's choice, into power. You expect them to make a difference in their policies and what they do with their leadership. And as the decades have gone by, I hear more and more disgruntled, I hate the government, I hate Obama, I hate Bush, I hate, whoever it is. Do you vote? No, it doesn't make a difference. But you hate and you disagree, and you cannot find any positive gift that any of the leadership can bring. So we complain. It's a national pastime. We complain. We don't vote. And then when we do see candidates come up like Donald Trump, who make wonderfully blanket statements about races. And what scares me is that there are people who actually think that he could run the country because he seems to know what he's doing in business. And if you think all that America's important for is, our gross national product and just wealth and wealth and wealth, and it doesn't matter any kind of balance for treating people or how we see people or how we treat each other, then you might vote for Donald Trump. You might actually think that what he's saying, certainly white supremacists who don't want anyone of color in America, are going to love what he's saying. So
well, and I also think that the loudest voice gets heard, and he certainly isn't shy about what he has to say. What kind of bothers me, well, not kind of bother me, what bothers me is he's popular because you see him on television. You see what he's done on television. You don't know what he's thinking. You don't know any statement so far of how he could run the country, how he would work with the Senate and Congress and all of that. You don't know. Right now he's the choice. I don't know if he's the choice, but he's the most visible. Yeah. And I think
he has the money to make sure
to do it.
That he's the most visible.
And as people who vote, do we really look into everything, or do we just have the charisma and think it's going to happen? We've seen what's kind of gone on with Obama at the very beginning. They didn't want to let him get away with anything or get anything through the Congress and Senate. There was sort of a little animosity going back and forth. You can't praise every presidential candidate. You can't disregard every presidential candidate. There's good and bad in everyone. And it's a time in this generation with so much publicity that we really can learn more about them if we spend the time.
Right. And they do say not to talk about two things, right? Religion and politics. And I think one of those reasons is when people fixate on their point of view, everyone has a right to my opinion, and that's the only opinion. And then we have arguments because nobody's going to shift and move or try to stand in someone else's moccasins to see the other side. But I do, without saying politically what party I am or how I vote, I have a habit, because it makes me feel better, of focusing on those things that are good about anyone. So what they have done well. So I just heard, Jarvis told me on the way in that I'm not like you. I don't listen to the news.
So you know what's going on today?
So I don't know what's going on today. So I had to ask him what's going on today happening? Because I don't like to be depressed first thing in the morning when I turn on the news, because 9 out of 10 of them are negative things. But he did tell me, going back to Obama, that he's the first president that actually is going to visit a federal prison.
Yes,
and I think
isn't that surprising?
It's surprising that he's the first one, right?
Yeah, that's what
but
I mean.
It's also, I can always find something wrong with someone, always. What is worrisome to me is that we seem to have picked up this habit in America of only seeing what is wrong. There's very little balance. Which is why my show is about balance.
Of course.
Why can't we? I'm not, and I know I'm going to sound Pollyanna, and I'm going to ask you to hold my hand and sing Kumbaya, but really, for me, it's all about feeling good. When I'm complaining, when I'm seeing what's worst, if I'm saying, that we have poor leadership, or, everything's going to heck in the handbasket, it doesn't make me feel good. That's why I don't listen to the news, because what comes in at the very beginning is mostly alleged
and
kidnapping and gossip.
Yeah.
So let's go there.
Let's try to destroy what we think is the best thing, because it makes you more perfect yourself if you can put somebody else down.
Right.
But I think if you really are looking at what the country needs, how many people really go to the poll with that in mind?
Yeah.
It's who turned them on, so to speak, who got them excited about it rather than listening to what they have to say.
Yeah. And why is it? Why is it? I know I'm not supposed to be interviewing, but why is it?
Well, this is
okay.
This is a conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
It isn't. Nobody's interviewing anybody, so hush.
Okay.
Just talk to me.
Okay. Why is it that people have such a fascination? That whole term, what's trending now? Why do people have such a fascination with knowing and talking and spreading and gossiping about people who don't mean anything? I mean, who really, I'm sorry, Kardashians, wouldn't it be great if news was about, I don't want to be famous. I want to be known as an inspirer. That's what I want to be known. Well, I want to be known as someone who inspires and encourages and motivates others. So if that was the new norm for news, right? To make it into the news, you had to do something or be something that was inspiring and adding and being a beneficial presence on the planet. Wouldn't that be awesome?
It would be awesome, but that is being done. I mean, we pick up the gossip. We read the Inquirer. We pick up the movie magazines because we want to say that Mr. Perfect isn't really perfect. I could be closer to what he's like because look what he is really doing. I think there are people who vote with a conscience. I think there are people who have a direct line to what we can do to make this country better. And I think if you discourage voting, then you're discouraging that too.
No,
I think it's very important to listen to everybody.
Yes,
to listen to all of them.
I agree with you.
All 432 that are running. It's going to be a little tough.
Yeah, and not just listen to what the news says about them. Because
it's gossip. They like the gossip.
What is real? What is real, anyways?
But you also have to put it in 10 words. You got to catch them. Make sure they don't turn the channel. What's the lead sentence that's going to make you listen to the rest of this?
So is it true that if it bleeds, it leads? Is it true that the only thing that we are interested in is the violence and the tragedy and the hopelessness and the fear and the lack and the beheading and all of that? Why is that so tantalizing? I was talking to your manager about the fact that he goes, because I was explaining why I don't listen to the news, and really he said 9 out of 10 things in the news were gossiping or scandal or depressing, and then there's the worst in people, which is what I complain about, and the last 1 out of 10 thing might be a human interest story. And so the media will say, so we blame the media and say, why do you do that? You should be showing human interest stories 9 out of 10, and then maybe the 10th one being, but they will come back and say, but we are only showing what you want to see.
Well, devil's advocate, I'm going to say I want to know what's going on in the world. Don't just paint the picture that it's all bright and wonderful and cheery. I'd like to see where those poor girls are getting kicked out of school or there's trafficking going on, because maybe there's something we can do about it.
True.
I think if you put your head in the sand, we are not Pollyanna. Everything is not perfect in this world. You take Gilligans Island, 7 misfits trying to live together. Now how many continents are trying to live together? Is it the leadership? Is it the public? What drives every country to what they do? And the world is complex. We're not all alike. Yeah. Brothers and sisters fight, and they love each other. I think that's our world today. The gossip columns keep it going.
Right. But see, that's not balanced, though. That's like 88% gossip, 88% negative fueling, got that whole, did you know that all the worst in people? Why can't we balance it? Why can't the human interest be first? And it's not all Pollyanna. I agree. I think we need to know those things. That's a great point. That we have to know what's broken in order to fix it. But here's my view, my opinion that everybody has a right to, is that when you focus on most media, weapons of mass distraction, as Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith calls it, most media won't focus on the negativity as a springboard toward solution. Most media will focus on the negativity and the horrific in order to dramatize it and make it even bigger so that people sit in front of the TV.
Well, sure, that they choose that channel as opposed to another channel.
Right, but then they're listening and waiting for what? Because then they have experts that come on, and I have been an expert and guilty of that too, who explain something that might be, is not even based on the facts. Case in point, Boston bombing. So Boston, the bomb goes off, and it's a horrific thing. It's a horrific event. But how many of us, I'm guilty, heard the first thing and then sat there and watched for 3 days, neglecting all the things, my kids want to talk to me. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm listening, and I'm not even listening to anything real. I'm listening to people talk about what they think might have happened. And that was 16 hours that I could have done something more important.
And so why didn't you?
Because
if it disturbed you so much, why didn't you pick up a good book?
Well, I do that now. Whenever I've been trained now that when I see something that is horrific, I take a breath and I send out a prayer to all those who are suffering and all who are others. And then I look at the solution. What part of this can I affect to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And that's one of the reasons I do this show. That's why I have people on here who have had child abuse and are now taking the child abuse and doing something to help
and if you don't know what's wrong, and if you don't see the abuse, you have no reason to take a step forward. But so it's an encouraging thing.
It's important. But
I think
my point is that there's a way to react to the tragedy that we're not taking advantage of enough. That I think we're getting caught.
How could you do it?
So the solution is to do exactly that. See what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Say a prayer. Call someone and say, let's take a breath and just send out to the people who suffered in the earthquake in Tibet. Is there anything I can do now to help with Tibet? Is there anything that I can do now to help with a neighbor? Is there anything that I can do now to help with my kids?
And don't you think that a lot of us in the world are doing that?
Not enough.
Well, never enough.
Never enough. But I really, I mean, I'm usually more positive than this. I guess this is what happens when I have to talk about negativity. But I think there are more of us now. I think there is a movement. I think that we are moving towards that let's help instead of hurt. But I do hear, in the mainstream, the trending, all of the hate talk. I do hear of all of the our race relations are not better than what they used to. The things that are going on in Ferguson, the things that are the police.
And I don't think the world will ever be totally at peace. So how do we cope with what's going on all along? We had years ago, you didn't have the news. Years ago, you waited a week for the newspaper. Mm-hmm. You got a little bit bits and pieces. Now you get everything, the good, the bad, the gossip, the truth, the not the truth. Yeah. So as we are raising the children coming up, they have more of an opportunity of making decisions.
True. If we sit down and give the balanced news. Well, so because what we do at home and how we talk with our friends and what we say in front of our kids about differences and about, what our generalizations, back to Donald Trump, his whole diatribe around Mexicans and the borders. And I mean, if you hear that and your kid hears that,
do they believe it?
And then you don't sit down and have a dialogue about that isn't the whole story.
Well, and that's a very good decision. I don't know whether it was one of the Kennedys or whatever. I can't remember. Might have been Maria Shriver that said they had to come to the dinner table with a subject to discuss. Each child had to look at the newspaper, if you're 5 or 7 or 22, whatever, and around the dinner table they would have discussions. I thought the family is missing that because mm-hmm. we're all on this electronics. We're mm-hmm. all talking to somebody we've never seen before. We're all speaking out, making fun of, criticizing, getting dates, whatever the reason it is, instead of communicating and really hearing it. Mm-hmm. You sitting at a dinner table with somebody who's completely opposite point of view would be a great discussion mm-hmm. without mm-hmm. passion, without anger, mm-hmm. being able to communicate. And I think that's going away. And mm-hmm. I think that's what a great thing to sit down. There's another thing I'd like to talk about is kids parenting a report card about their parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wondered how I knew. Well, you'll have to ask Chloe and Sarah.
But wouldn't it be interesting to see what your kids think about you on a report card? Yeah. Because they're not going to tell you.
Right.
Well, if you're sitting around about what's going on in the world, it's the same thing. If you're sitting down and then you're talking to me and I'm angry at something, you could change my mind by dessert. If you have a good point of view. And I think we're losing that communication. We're just listening to other people.
I agree. I think that we can't affect the connections around the world if we can't affect the connections
at home.
At home.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, relationships all over the place.
And it's hard now because one of the things in my book I talk about is everybody's working.
Oh, let me
mothers and fathers are both working. You're in a divorced home. You have a stepfather with your kids that doesn't care about manners. Blah blah blah. It's not the family that we had years ago. And it's multiple families, multiple races, divorce, not divorce, both parents working. It's much harder. I mean, you don't talk about the Kardashians. If I were a little girl boy, I'd want one of those $500 purses probably. You don't know. What are we influencing our kids today?
I would love to. I had this business idea. I went to see the Dalai Lama at the UCI Center, and I love the Dalai Lama. He's one of my favorite teachers. Wouldn't it be great if this would be a good business idea for us. Why don't we design a designer brand of purses and sunglasses that have DL or His Holiness HHDL. And then the funds from that line would go and help him do his peace work around the world. Wouldn't that be awesome?
It would be awesome. Do you think you could convince the public?
I don't know, but it's like my dad had it right. One Christmas I gave him a designer shirt. I think it was a Perry Ellis or something. And he took one look at the monogram and he goes, "This is not my initials. Why would I wear someone else's shirt?" I went, "Okay, Dad." And I'm guilty. I do ask myself sometimes, why is it important for me to wear something that has Michael Kors on it when I don't even know Michael Kors?
Well, that's a society wherever you think you fit.
Yeah.
Or these little kids. This bullying just makes my stomach turn so much because some little girl doesn't have the courage to say, "Shut up. I don't want to wear that mini skirt," or whatever, because it starts at a very young age now, and we are inundated with all the ads and everything. It's very hard. I'm not a parent, so I can easily preach, but I haven't raised children to say, whatever happened to my kid? I've not seen him in 6 months or something. It's very hard being a parent today. But we are raising good children. I mean, we're talking about the Special Olympics coming here.
Yes.
There are people here who really do care.
Yes.
So we're now passing on the negative, saying what can we get rid of? But what positiveness can we bring? You do with your show.
Thank you.
Even though you don't take your own advice.
Yes, that's true. 88% of the time I do take my own advice.
Oh, good.
But if you ask my kids, I don't know if that would be the same. But I do want to just say thank you for bringing that up. Special Olympics, they actually came through my hometown yesterday, Seal Beach.
Yay!
And my friend, my girlfriend, is the senior VP over there, and she says that people can still help by going to www.la2015.org, and you can. They are coming the 25th of July, and what you can do if you see any of the signs is this is the symbol to celebrate the Special Olympics 2015 in LA, as well as to welcome them. And I'm doing it here on the air. I'm hoping my listeners will all do this on the 25th, and I'm doing it on the boat tonight when I go race with my.
You're going to race?
Yeah, I race.
Are you paddling
sailboats.
or what are you doing?
No.
Sailboat.
Yeah, I've been doing that many years.
Do
I'm
you
not gonna
sail
say how
yourself?
many.
Really? That is really hard work.
It is. It's a beautiful sport. I'm on the water every week.
Wow.
Wet Wednesdays at Long Beach Yacht Club. It's my therapy on the water, and my name Marissa means on the water.
It does. And how many people are on the boat with you?
So I have a double yay. Not only do I get to race sailboats as the pit boss, the person in the middle. That's my job. Well, pit is the job, but they call me the pit boss.
It fits.
You wonder why. And I also get to teach. We bring on inner city kids every week, every series from a different group. So we have the Girls and Boys Club this time, and we've gotten 2 firsts in a row. So
how exciting.
Yeah, so we're going to do this on the boat tonight.
Does the weather make a difference? Do you always go out?
Yeah, wind or no wind.
Wind or no wind.
Yeah, and it's usually wet. That's why I call it Wet Wednesdays, so it doesn't matter if it's raining.
Well, and it's interesting because what you do with kids. I'm chairman of a family foundation in my town of Reno, Nevada, and we have funded a children's museum, the Discovery Museum, and to see not having children. I haven't had the experience of seeing them come in and create and see what they can see and do. I mean, there's a whole thing called Inside Out. Tells you what your body does, how you know whether you're colorblind or not, how far the blood goes with your heart. And you see these little 3- and 4-year-old kids that would not have any opportunity.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I mean, I think I'm just proud of it. That's all. I'm just
Yeah.
bragging a little bit about making a difference in Reno, Nevada, where there's gambling and prostitution and instant divorce. We do have other things.
And that answers your earlier question. When you hear about the human sex trafficking and what's going on, what do? You took your time and your energy and put it into this organization. That's what I'm asking people to do.
Everybody has some passion somewhere that they can contribute somehow.
Exactly. And in fact, we could look at life as a series of tragedies or a series of, shiitake happening, right? It's like, and then I've heard that expression, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when my parents are not ill, or when I get that
more money,
promotion, or I get that house or that new car. I'll be happy then. And then everything gets in the way of that. Oh, this broke down, that broke down, this fell apart, this relationship, then the divorce, then the health insurance. And then if we're in that place, then life becomes a series of calamities.
And I think you breed that. I think you look for it. You search it out. I had an experience. I was ill for a time in Virginia in a cabin in the mountains. And I was maybe 10 feet from a tree with a little birdhouse, a little tiny birdhouse, maybe 4 by 5 inches. And I kept seeing these 2 little birds go in. I thought one was a blue jay. Didn't really look like it, but a little bit blue. And I said, there's a mom and dad in there. There's babies in there. And my manager went and looked through there. He said, yeah, there's some eggs in there. Well, I'd say maybe 3 days, 4 days more. I looked up, and one little baby bird was coming out of the house. I have never seen a bird learn to fly the first time. Pretty hard in downtown L.A. to see any of them. The first little bird came out and fluttered and took away. The second little bird came out and fluttered and flew away. The third one got the wing caught, couldn't get the wing out of the hole, fell to the ground, got up and flew. And I looked around. All the other little animals were there. Other birds, squirrels, all like, come on.
White.
It was a Disney movie, for real.
Yeah,
tears are running down my face because you don't ever see something like that. Do we take time to see what the world is offering us rather than just moving ahead?
Yeah, and bracing ourselves for the next shoe to drop. But and that's life, and that's what keeps you looking young, keeps you. I think, for those of you who don't know,
I'm 103 years old. And I managed to come to work today.
Yeah. She's 76, which is just as miraculous. And she's not had work. And whenever I show off her picture, people go, yeah, but she's paid. I said, nope, she hasn't.
I'm terrified.
No, it's
I'm
wonderful.
just fortunate.
I know the secret to your youthfulness, and that is your attitude. I know
absolutely,
that.
absolutely. Every day I look forward to something else. I'm blessed to be here. I don't dwell on that. But there's something new every day. I have little birds in my thing. Oh, look at that little hummingbird. Never saw one do that before. I think you have to live life everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
It isn't all just your mind. It isn't all the money that you're making. It isn't what mark you've made in this world. It's, can you say at the end of the journey, boy, what a great trip this has been. What a great place I've been. And it's hard when you're suffering or been abused and all of that. That's very difficult. I mean, I love the Dalai Lama. I know what you're saying. Peace is an active verb. That's what he said as he leaves.
Yeah, and kindness is my religion. Yeah, and if there's a problem and there's a solution, there's nothing to worry about. And if there's a problem and there's no solution, there's still nothing to worry about.
There you go. Oh, yes.
And I'm getting the signal that we are about to take a break to thank the sponsors for today's show. So we will be back in 2. Peace in, peace out.
Do you want to be a part of a holistic solution to our broken jail system? The Emerging Leaders Academy is helping reduce the California statistic where 3 out of 4 people return to prison within their first year out. In partnership with the LA County Sheriff's Department, LA Urban League, Goodwill, Long Beach PD, and the Agape International Spiritual Center, ELA, a nonprofit program, is a transformational path to opportunities with responsibility and a recognition of the unique role we all have in this thing called life. If you would like to be a partner in someone's inside-out transformation with career development, entrepreneurship, therapeutic literacy, financial education, and hope to those who think they have no alternative than to return to jail, then be the change you want to see and become an ELA partner. Visit emergingleaders360.org today.
Looking for a rejuvenating getaway? Then Salt Oasis is your answer. This holistic wellness center allows you to escape your worries while absorbing nature's healing properties. Salt therapy has been a trusted way to help individuals suffering from a wide range of respiratory and autoimmune disorders to skin conditions and anxiety. Salt Oasis is conveniently located in Rancho Cucamonga near Victoria Gardens. Call 909-291-7258. That's 909-291-7258 and plan your escape into wellness. And thank you, Salt Oasis. I'm going to be enjoying their wonderful therapies very soon. And I met them actually when I was the keynote speaker out in the Inland Empire at a Health to Wealth Expo. So thank you for supporting the show, Salt Oasis. And we are back. If you've been tuned in and listening, as I'm sure you have, to catch my very special return guest to the show, Dawn Wells. You know her most, I'm sure, as MaryAnn from Gilligans Island, and she's been on all weekend. I've had actually 3 people say to me in the last 5 hours, "Oh, I can't wait to hear MaryAnn. I actually was with her all weekend." And I'm like, "You were?
Where?" Boy, did I have a good time. I can't remember any of them.
You did. My postal woman or post officer, post attendant, I don't know exactly how to call them anymore, mail carrier, something respectful. I love her. She saw you all weekend. You're the spokesperson on MTV.
MeTV, yeah.
MeTV, and they played a marathon of you all weekend.
My 5 favorite episodes. It's just wonderful. You know, all over the world. We've never been off the air 50 years. And all the languages everywhere. Who would have thought it? And yet the love comes back to me. I mean, it really does, and it really makes you feel good that I've raised 2 or 3 generations of some pretty good kids.
Yeah, and she's got a great Facebook page, so go there and like it. If you can hear me say this whenever you're listening to me, do that, and just like her page, and you can like mine too, just Dr. Marissa. And then I wanted to also say you can find her book. I flashed it earlier.
I'm very proud of that.
Guide to Life, What Would MaryAnn Do? I didn't realize, because you've been promising me a copy. This is my first copy I've actually gotten, but there's beautiful pictures.
Well, my manager picked those out. He went through about 5,000 pictures, but there's stuff for me as a little girl.
Beautiful. Oh, look at this, New York. You almost look like what's the actress in New York? Not Get Smart, but oh, look at this. Is this?
That was my husband. That was at Tina Louise's wedding.
What? Ginger's
wedding.
That's so cool.
Did you see that hat?
Yeah.
Jim Backus made the cutest conversation at the wedding reception because Tina's so beautiful and her husband was so beautiful. And Jim looked around and said, "If you get a divorce, who's going to get custody of the mirror?" 2 beautiful people.
That's funny. Are they still married?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but they had a lovely daughter.
Oh, beautiful.
Yep.
So, host?
So now anything else on your mind? We've managed to solve the problems of the world. Yeah. Now what else?
Oh, I do want to say I kind of might have to vote for Hillary. She did give me the 2005 Role Model of the Year award in business and media in Washington, D.C.
She handed it to you?
Yeah.
Well, all right.
But again, if you are a complainer about politics, then leave your complaint in your mouth and go and use your fingers to research who agrees with what you think are the solutions for this country.
And you have a lot of choices now coming up. It's amazing to see everybody's throwing their hat in their way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice. Do you remember your first election?
Yes, I do. You know why? Because I'm actually Canadian born.
Yes.
And yeah, here I am lecturing about voting in America. But
the Prime Minister, who'd you vote for?
Yes, Trudeau at the time. Mm-hmm. But I was sponsored to run the John Robert Powers Modeling Schools and Agencies. I moved here from Hawaii. I had won the Miss Hawaiian Tropic Regionals. And because I was first runner-up, and the first place was caught doing something, and so I went to Hawaii, and then I got this job offer to run the schools here, and that's how I came to LA. I did not get I had a green card. I did not become a citizen at the time, and then I ended up getting married, and I did not use him to get my citizenship because I really didn't think that it was necessary to become American.
Did you take the test?
And then what happened was 9/11. And I said, you know what? I want to belong to this country. And so I was the first graduating group after 9/11. And actually, Eyewitness News came right up, and I guess they were passing, and I'm a retired lounge lizard. I put myself through grad school singing at piano bars and drunk people. Yeah. So I was singing the national anthem, and they came by and they heard me, and they stuck the mic in front of me. So I made the news at the ceremony. Isn't
Well, I
that
remember Craig Ferguson when he was getting his citizenship, and he would come on the air and he'd talk about the questions he had to learn and the answers he had to memorize and everything.
Yeah. So if the president and the vice president were in an airplane separately and they died, who would be the next in line? That's what I thought, but it's not.
It is not. Who is it?
No, it's the majority leader. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah, isn't it? So there's a lot of different things that we don't know, even growing up in the country.
No, that's right. And of course, we never had to pass those tests.
I know what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about this.
But you're going to anyway. Go ahead. Speak up. What?
But it's been in the news, and so someone asked me to talk about it. So, Bill Cosby.
Oh, William Cosby. That is a conundrum, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'd been one thing if it had been 3 or 4 people. What is it, 16 now?
Yeah.
16, 17?
I think it's maybe even more. I saw like 25, I think, when I was doing the research.
And we were just talking about it before we sat down, is the statute of limitations
8 years.
8 years, so nothing can be done?
Well, okay, so let me put the moose on the table on this one. And that's a Canadian expression, by the way.
I guess so, because there aren't any no mises in my house. Go ahead.
It's a Canadian version of the elephant in the room.
Yes.
And I have to say, when I first heard, I was just like, because I would use Cosby as a great example of clean humor.
No question, on the air.
And I, and that part, that's his gift. And, all that he's done.
He keeps on giving.
He keeps say that. But but and then I had that same reaction that a lot at the beginning were having. It's like, well, how much of this is people wanting to make money or trying to. And then I actually have a friend who has been on the show who told me her personal experience with him, where he was inappropriate with her just after meeting her, and so that started me thinking and getting the balanced view in all of this. And then you yourself know of
and I find it very interesting because he's so revered, and he was the father image, and it was something you would sit down and watch with the family. What does that do? What does that do to the youth that grew up that way? What does it do? Is he getting away with it? If he can't prosecute, paying off somebody, did they take the doctorate away from him? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's one of our idols. It's like bad rapping Walt Disney. Really, you know? I mean, it's the same thing.
Right. So now I'm going to answer that question. So in cases like this, a normal show about this would then go on pontificating for the next whatever, hours and hours and hours, talking about what we don't really know. Okay, we don't really, but we can talk about what we do know, but to what end? So the way I would shift right now is knowing what we do know. Okay, so what is in the deposition we do know. What people have come forward and said we do know. What the president has said, and
I've not heard what the president said.
The president said, if someone gives drugs and forgive me if I don't get this perfectly, and then has sex, that is not consensual. So under the influence, after giving someone drugs, that's called rape.
But if you're consensual to take it, doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. And a lot of these were not consensual to take it.
That's right.
So knowing that, so what can we control, like serenity prayer here? Accept the things we cannot change the fact that someone who I really thought I admired, is not worth my admiration. That this did happen to these women, and they have come forward, and I give kudos to the courage that it took for the first ones to come forward without all the, and then to the courage to change the things I can. So what can I change? Knowing this particular instance, what can I change? So the one thing that I can do automatically is I have 2 teenage girls. And I can say to them, this is a reality. This can happen. And I know that I have raised you and taught you that you would know what to do in a situation like this. And we can talk about it. So that's something that I can do, that I have control over. And all their friends. And I am really, really, really lucky. All their friends, they call me Dr. Mom, and they're really sweet, and they hug me, and I love them, and they love me. And so we can have these kinds of conversations, maybe that they can't have with their parents, because I know my kids have conversations with their white mom or other moms that are in their lives that they can't have with me, even though I talk about everything. At the dinner table, they go, Mom, can we have one dinner without talking about, can I say vagina? Well, I'm saying
not on the air. Cut.
but so that's something I can change. That's something I can take the courage to talk about with that. I can look at any nonprofit organization, and that's the beautiful thing about nonprofits is nonprofits are the beneficial presences on the planet. We come on this planet to take adversity of what we go through or what we see, the tragedies that happen, Tibet, the earthquakes, all of those things break our hearts wide open so that we can be more compassionate. And then we can funnel our energy and our resources and our money to those things so that they either avoid the things that, or at least help those things that we can change. The resources or the the health and the hospice, Doctors Without Borders, all of those things are they come out of tragedy and adversity. Yes. So that's the beautiful side of it. But when we get caught up in the of the tragedy and stop at the gossip or stop at the speculation or stop at the blame game or stop at the shame game, that's when we miss out. So I'm not saying that we don't react or are fascinated by it, but we move from the fascination to the solution.
How do you, as a parent, how do you instill that in a child, 7, 8, 9 years old, by example, by the friends they keep, by the area that you live in, by the education that they're having, and still doesn't work? I mean, how do we pass on what we believe?
Yes.
And if you are guiding your children in what you believe and the religion that you believe in and what's good and what's bad, but they still make mistakes and they still choose other things. So it's a very difficult thing, I think.
I have been doing this with my kids for 10 years. Every morning when we go to school, they are asked. I started this right after the divorce when I could parent exactly the way I wanted to, one of the benefits of divorce. And I would say to the kids on the way to school, what are 3 things that you're grateful for? And it didn't always have to be positive. Okay. So 3 things you're grateful for. And then about a year later, when it was going so well, I added the appreciation exercise. And I said, what's one thing you appreciate about yourself? About your sister, about your mom, and about yourself. And we've been doing this for 10 years.
They keep adding new things?
And they can't use what they used yesterday.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can run out a little bit, can't you?
No, because there's always something to be grateful for. And I will say that those 2 exercises made 88% of the difference in the way that my kids now look at life. Yeah. And I have a balanced parenting book coming out this year, capturing those tools as well as, some other thing. I took the 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz's book. He's been on my show, the 4 agreements. He's got be impeccable with your word, cooperate fully, do the very best that you can, and don't take things personally. And I took those 4 and adapted it to the kids. And every day, at the end of the day, they would say, the first time you err in one of the categories, you're not perfect, so there's no consequence. But the second time that you choose not to be kind, then there's a consequence. And they have a privilege list that they pick from, and they say, whatever it is, the phone, friends, TV, computer, and for the next day, they lose that privilege. And that also contributed towards my kids. I mean, my kids, I'm sorry I'm biased, but they are just amazing.
Well, but you had a big part in that. They weren't raising themselves.
Right, but there are kids, and to be fair, even if you do things like that, that doesn't mean necessarily that the kids turn out the way my kids turned out, which is extremely grateful and respectful and kind 88% of the time. They're not 100%. But the thing with kids are they have their path. And so as long as I teach them about action and consequence, or I teach them about how to be kind, how to cooperate, how to show respect and do the best that they can and love themselves, then I've done my job.
Well, and I was raised by a mother alone. My mother and father were divorced. My father and stepmother were friends with my mother. But I learned by example. My mother never sat and talked to me like what you're talking about, my mother, but I saw it. I saw her give the little girl down the street the little dress. I saw her as a brownie leader. I saw her with balanced meals. I saw her with discipline without being irate about things, but you don't go out and play until your room's clean, black and white. And mother and daughter alone are a little tough, one-on-one. I had no brothers and sisters or anything then, you know. So I saw by example. There were no lectures. There was no long conversations. But the kids I hung around with also were raised the same way. You know, there was a neighborhood. You'd be out there kicking ball down the street, and they'd say, it's 8 o'clock, your mother's looking for you. And now nobody's home, so it's much more difficult.
Right. So you think that, I'm going to interview again. So you think part of the problem with parenting now is because there's no one at home, would you say?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. My mother worked, though, but my mother never took a job that she couldn't be home when I got home from school. I lived about 6 blocks away from high school, and I decided I wanted to walk to high school. My mother said, you can walk. She followed me in the car. Now, in this day and age, I don't know whether I'd run away. Why didn't I? Why? Because I respected her. You can't teach somebody to respect you. It's what you see around you that causes your children to understand this is respect. You can't just say, respect that woman. What does that mean? But when your children see how you behave in your universe, it's nothing but good coming from you.
And then there's the balance. So, yes, you know, 2-income families, you know, I hear people, there's no way only one person can work. And then there's, you know, housewives, is that even a term anymore? And why would someone want to stay home all the time? But, you know, and then there's the, you know, the working moms versus the non-working moms and the PTA. And so for me, it's all about balance. I'm a working mom. I love my work. I couldn't see myself not working, but I also make sure that when I'm with them, I'm really with them.
My mother was that way too.
Yeah.
Yes. I know she had to work.
Yeah.
She had to, but never complained.
Yeah.
And is it morality? Is it spirituality? Is it intelligence? Is it a combination of everything? I mean, if you're in a household where there's abuse, what do you do as a child?
Yeah.
You know, do you run away? Do you become abusive yourself? What happens?
Yeah.
And there's good that comes out of that too. I mean, the Lord sort of watches over us all, and it's amazing how we all survive, I think.
Well, and again, even abuse. I will say that even abuse, and I talk about abuse on the show. I am a child of abuse myself. I don't see it the way that I used to. I used to see abuse as one of those adversity things that I would never get over. Deep, deep, deep inside, I was damaged, and there was nothing. I was always behind the 8 ball because I was always playing catch up because something had happened to me that really, set me back. And when I realized in this new way of living that I have since, that brought this show about, is adversity and abuse, any kind of thing that was painful, was actually the alchemist, the touchstone, the sculptor, the grain of sand in the oyster, the pearl maker.
Yes.
So that actually came in meditation this week, that adversity is like the handrail that helps us up to new heights. Adversity is the stepping stone. Overcoming adversity is really the blessing that gives us an expansion that we couldn't have had without it. So I have no regrets about anything
I don't either.
that has happened that before I saw as extremely a point of suffering, and I believe that I'm I'm meant to be on the planet to talk about that. That's why I have this show.
Well, and I think we have a negative and a positive, and I've always taken a positive outlook. I mean, there's always something positive out of something.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've broken your Lego, but it could have broken them both. Or,
Exactly.
That kind of thing. And I think that's the optimism is what keeps me young.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking forward for tomorrow always, and there is something good when that sun comes up in the daytime. And I'm blessed, and people are living in adversity a lot.
They are.
But don't give up.
They are. No, absolutely. And we're out of time. And I just want to thank you so much.
I wish you'd come back to my show again. I've so enjoyed you. Oh, I'm such a good host.
You
come
were.
Back. Oh, I just had the best time with you.
You don't need any help at all here.
We're just like two little magpies.
A huge round of applause. Thank you so much. I'm going to take hostage of my show back and give you a balance bar at the end. And my Asian Oprah giveaway is a free retreat. August 1st, I'm doing balanced Tai Chi Kung on the beach as well as still meditation in Seal Beach. Registration at 4balance.org. If you pre-register, you save $20. And it's only $88 to come, and you get a free balanced Tai Chi Kung DVD. So please do register at my website for that as well. I am finishing off round 49 of the 21-day fast from complaining with Dr. Marissa. And so we'll see you August 1st for round 50. So you can complain from now till then. Haha. And we are up 30,000 YouTube views. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of my fabulous listeners and supporters like April S., who wrote in and she enjoys the show, and she's going through some temporary expansion and adversity through cancer, and we just know that it's just going to make her bigger and better and fabulouser. So peace out to April S. And that's it for today. I picked my closing out song to be a song that I wrote, and it's called Before the Dawn. And so next week, Charles is like at me. So next week, tune in. It is that time of the month, Marvin Gaye, Sexual Healing with Dr. Marissa. And we do have a fabulous guest coming in to talk about infertility, who is a friend of my co-producer here. And she will be on next week. And it is Tanyetta is coming. Thank you for that. I meant to ask you that earlier. But tune in next week to take my advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa. Pay. That's P for positive EI. And remember, it's all about balance. Peace in and peace out.
Before the dawn, for I am weak and he is strong. He lifts me up so I can see how dark it is before the dawn. It was cold outside and dangerous, and I couldn't see my own good. People hurt me on the